I am delighted today to be interviewing Rabbi Shlomo and Rivka Slatkin. Their article, Five Keys to a Happy Lasting Marriage, was published in Authority magazine recently. Congratulations for that.
Okay.
Rabbi Slatkin and his wife Rivka founded the Marriage Restoration Project, a global initiative to keep couples together and happy. Their mission is to help save marriages in 2 days by way of marriage intensive retreats. I love reading about your work. I went to your website and read quite a bit about what you've accomplished. I'm so impressed. Tell me, I have a few of clients that I work with that do real well while they are in the coaching package that I offer them. But 6 months down the road, they slide back into their old habits and are in trouble again. So it makes me curious to know if you have done any long range tracking of the couples that go through your 2-day intensive. What kind of, is there any kind of follow up, or tell me a little bit about what you know about couples down the road after they've done their 2 days intensive.
Sure. So, um, so you're wondering kind of like, do we have any follow-up to know what happens down the road? Because inevitably people do backslide a little bit. And so we don't have any longitudinal studies, meaning where we have it like, we're checking in with them at certain count points along the way. Uh, I have found sometimes couples, if they don't finish all of their follow-up sessions, they will check in later on, or we have had people come back to do sessions to follow up on the work that they already did. Um, I also do get people are on our list, our email list, so they're constantly receiving messages from us. So we're kind of there in the background or the forefront of their mind, which is a good reminder for them, but it also gives them an opportunity to reach out to us. And we have heard from people, years later who are doing really, really well,
Mhm.
even from the work that they did previously because of it made a shift in their relationship that they're never going to go back fully to where they were before. And for a lot of couples, and then also it gave them skills to be able to create a different reality. So by understanding their relationship differently, it gave them a different trajectory, and it also gave them different skills. And once they use the skills and are able to relate to each other in a healthier, more connected way, then it will prevent the backsliding that inevitably.
Uh-huh. I I was very interested to hear that you are so committed to the Imago process. My late husband Jim and I got our marriage back on track by a wonderful coach that just taught us how to speak and listen to each other with more respect than we had been using. But a couple years later, we read Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix, and it took our marriage up to another higher level. It was like we did all the exercises in the book, and it helped us recognize why we perfectly chose each other. You know, we chose each other for a lot of good reasons, but those unconscious reasons uh, helped us do more personal work that we both needed to do to make our marriage even better. So, how did you make contact, or how did you learn about the Imago process? And I understand you're a trainer, and that must be what you use in your 2-day intensives as well.
Sure. Yeah, so it started off in terms of my professional career started off as very personal. When we were married about 2 years, we had our first child, and we had the usual, I guess, squabbles that people have in the beginning of a relationship. But it got to the point though where it was, I would say, for me, it was too much for me to tolerate. Uh, I felt like the conflict was more than I was able to be comfortable with, and I felt like we needed to get help because things were not going in the right direction. So both of us had heard separately about Imago from colleagues or friends. I
Uh-huh.
heard from your hairdresser.
Yeah.
I heard from an occupational therapist, and we got a specific referral to a clinician in the area. And we went and met with him for an hour and a half, and it was like we had like fallen in love again. Like things just, but we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. We started understanding what was going on, and it made a lot of sense why we started off in such a, this dream relationship, which had become kind of a nightmare.
Yes.
And it
It's
gave us,
kind of a typical progression, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Mm.
so common, but we didn't realize that. Everybody thinks that, oh well, we're gonna be different than everybody else, like because we
Yes.
know how to communicate and we know how to be in relationship, but we didn't. We were young and naive, and we didn't want to believe what people told us, and we got in, and then we had the challenges. So we started doing we went on a regular basis, and it made a huge impact. And then I was getting my master's in counseling psychology at the time. I was also studying to be I wanted to be a pulpit rabbi.
Uh-huh.
I thought it's good to have counseling skills on the side. And the therapist said, there's an Imago training coming up, a clinical training to become a certified Imago therapist. Maybe you would be interested. And I said, sure, this actually works. And I took the training, and then my path kind of went a different way, and I wound up doing this as my, pulpit, so to speak. So I've been doing, we got into Imago probably, how long ago, 22 years
Yeah,
ago.
something like that.
So I've been doing this professionally probably about 20 years, and I've been faithful to the model and we did the work, we're workshop presenters also. It's kind of like after the advanced clinician, you can become a workshop presenter. And now I've just joined the Imago faculty. So I'm training other clinicians to be, and coaches as well, to do Imago therapy or Imago facilitation.
So you're multiplying your effectiveness, not only by saving marriages, but by training other therapists to use the Imago model. I love hearing that. I'm wondering, Rivka, maybe you'd like to answer this question. Couples think that problems are a sign that they are in the wrong relationship. What do you tell them?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I mean, I hear Shlomo saying all the time, the things that bother you about your partner, if your neighbor was doing those things, would you be bothered by your neighbor's behavior? And not necessarily. Sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't even notice that in him or her, but with your partner, it's particularly annoying or particularly angering. And there's a reason for that. And that's kind of a sign, if that's happening, to know like, oh, let me get curious. There's something unique that's upsetting about this conflict. And I don't feel that way about my friend's husband. So why is it that I feel this way about my own husband or wife? And it's a clue to get curious about what's deeper going on.
So it's a sign when there's an upset, it's just a signal, as you say, to get curious about what's going on. You mentioned in the written article that if couples have safe communication, they can resolve almost anything. The first component, you also said, of a safe dialogue is to make an appointment. Why is that?
Making an appointment is solves half the problem, because I think a lot of the times when we have conflict is when we're kind of taken off guard. We're not expecting our spouse to just dump on us. So when we have that warning, so to speak, that hopefully they won't dump on us even when we have the appointment, but that's also part of the rules of the game. But just to be able to know that I'm going to hear something that I might not might not agree with, and or might be difficult for me to listen to. I can shift gears. I can be more intentional. We call it intentional dialogue, but it's about being intentional, not for just for the person who's sharing. To be intentional, I want to have a conversation with you. Are you available now? But also for the person listening to be intentional, that I'm going to hear this and I'm going to not get into myself, my reactivity, but I'm going to be present and really be in your space and hear where you're coming from. And if you don't have that appointment, it's very hard. Our natural reaction is to protect ourselves. So the minute we feel in danger, we're going to go into our own whatever adaptive behavior. So that's going to get that reactivity. It's going to get either we're going to shut down, we're going to get angry. And having that prompt is now a good time, helps us get in the right space to create the safe.
This is a habit that my late husband and I learned to practice. He used to tell the classes that we taught he needed to know which hat to put on.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, he'd put on his conversation hat or skill discussion hat. So it gave her time, like you said, to prepare himself for whatever the topic was going to be.
That's a
You
great
also
image.
mentioned the importance of giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. Would either one of you like to expound a little bit on that concept?
I mean, I think that giving your partner the benefit of the doubt, just seeing them more favorably, not looking at them as the enemy. You know, they're not your enemy. They are basically a wounded child, like all of us are, with deeper unmet needs. So viewing them in a more favorable light, giving them the benefit of the doubt, not jumping to conclusions that they're out to get you or they're trying to hurt you immediately, which can be our rote if we're trying to get safe in our mind. Just taking a minute to pause and reminding ourselves, okay, you know, I'm not a child where I was defenseless growing up. I'm an adult in an adult relationship and my partner is here to help me. Um, Easier said than done sometimes.
It's so easy to kind of drop into that ditch of thinking negatively and getting stuck in that cycle. So that when we approach a conversation, we're approaching from a very negative point of view rather than a positive one. So I love that you emphasize giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. And you mentioned taking a pause uh, before reacting, which is, yeah, I think is so key to managing the upsets in any relationship. Thoughts and feelings are fleeting, you mentioned, and often coming from a survival mindset, not always accurate. Shlomo, would you like to explain a little bit about what is a survival mindset?
So a survival mindset is when we feel threatened, and it's usually triggering something from the past. We say if it's hysterical, it's historical. So that anything that really bothers you and pushes your buttons is something
Would
that's
you repeat that phrase?
sure. If it's hysterical, it's historical.
Yes.
Anything that really bothers you and sets you off, gets your blood boiling, it's usually more about you than about the offending party. But when that trigger is pushed, the button is pushed, we're going to go back into that very primitive part of our brain where we're just thinking about ourselves and we're self-absorbed and our number one need at that moment is to protect ourselves, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
Some people, it looks like we minimize our energy. Some people, we maximize our energy. But that's safe to say it's not going to be productive for the relationship because when we go into survival mode, it's going to provoke the other survival mode. So it's important to learn how to self-regulate and to be able to realize that all because I'm upset right now about something, it's not necessarily accurate. It's my interpretation based on my whatever my past baggage,
Mm-hmm.
and not to catastrophize that because a few minutes later we might be in a whole different mental state and it doesn't bother us anymore. But we
Yes.
automatically think like, I have to talk about this right now, and if I don't talk about it, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then like, an hour later, it's like, oh, like you're like shooting the breeze together.
It's past.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you describe the 3 stages of marriage? That was such a revelation to Jim and I when we learned the 3 stages. It was very reassuring. So why don't you outline what the 3 stages are?
Sure. So the first stage is called romantic love. That's when the couple first meets and falls in love and when they make that decision to commit to each other. And that's the stage where everything seems perfect. The brain is being flooded with neurochemicals. The pain receptors are dulled. We're not able to really see what lies ahead. And even though now, we asked you if you could have predicted the issues that you have, you probably could have said, yeah, actually, now that I think about it in retrospect, yes, I could. But at that moment, you don't want to hear it. It says love is blind, so it blinds you from all the issues. Then once you commit, once you get married, sometimes even before the wedding, the chemicals begin to wear off. Doesn't mean you don't love each other, but that sense of infatuation and then almost delusion begins to wear off. And then you're in what we call the power struggle. And the power struggle is when you're both kind of fighting each other. You see that you're not the same, and you're dealing with the differences that you're married to to someone that is not you. And that's
Mhm.
very difficult for people. It can feel betraying. It can feel like I made the wrong decision. This is a mistake. Somebody else would be better.
The honeymoon is over.
Honeymoon is over, yeah, and the nightmare has begun. And there's varying levels of power struggle. And we find that the people who have a more intense romantic stage have a more intense power struggle. The people that had a more like, I know, vanilla type of romantic stage, their power struggle is also not as strong, but there's still an element of it. Most of the couples, half of couples who in the power struggle call it quits. They get divorced because they feel like this shows me that I made the wrong choice. And the eye-opening thing that I thought from Imago is to teach us that the power struggle is a means towards an end. It's not just your bad luck. It's actually a means towards what we call the conscious marriage or real love. And what that means is that once we become conscious of the conflict and realize that the struggle that we're having is much more about our own deeper baggage or issues that are being triggered by our partner than the actual content in the here and now. Once we can become conscious of that, then we achieve that conscious relationship, that more mature form of love. And it's a journey. And, some people initially, Harville said, like, you never really get there. Now there are couples who've been doing this for years that say they have gotten to that stage. Others have described it's kind of like a spiral, so that you can you're always going up, you're always going around this cycle from romantic love to power struggle to conscious marriage, but you're kind of going up to more elevated, you're going up and up and up. So different ways of looking at it, but the point is that relationships are not static, and we don't need to worry about, because we're in one stage, it doesn't mean that the relationship is doomed. And not only is it not doomed, but that the challenges are there as an opportunity for growth and healing. And that's what I think we both loved about Imago, is that not only did we have the hope that our relationship could be better, but we saw that even the very challenges were there to help us grow.
It's like the power struggle stage is a call to personal growth and healing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Found as we use the skills that we learned, that we were able to participate in healing each other's wounds from the past. It was, it was magical to add that awareness to our marriage so that struggles became a doorway, and, to not only to personal growth, but to a closer connection to each other.
Mm.
I so love the work that you're doing and the energy that you're putting into training others. If anyone who's watching this video would like to learn more about the Marriage Restoration Project, you can go to the website, themarriagerestorationproject.com, and take advantage of all the resources that are listed on the website. I also noticed that you, Rabbi, are on YouTube. You must add videos of yourself speaking or teaching on YouTube. And I urge you to go back to the Authority Magazine article, 5 Keys to a Happy Lasting Marriage, and read all of the wisdom that was shared in that article. It's my privilege to meet you in person via Zoom. But thank you for booking this interview, the further interview. It will also be added as a link to your written interview on Medium.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So I
Nancy.
wish you the very best. Thank you again for meeting with me today.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks for the
It's great meeting you as
invitation.
well.
I hope we do get to meet in literal person at some point in time. I understand you're in Los Angeles, is that right?
Actually, we're in Baltimore.
Baltimore, my mistake.
Okay.
Well, I don't know when I'll get to Baltimore, but anyway, I'm just really glad to have met you and I wish you the very best.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Nancy. And you keep up your great work too.
Oh, thank you. I plan to. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.